Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In this week's video, I'm going to be restocking the store with some reversible bikini sets, and I'm going to show you here how I go about and do that. So first off, here I am separating my fabric and making a cut so I could have an even square, so I could cut in 2 layers at a time because I'll be making 2 of each size. And these are going to be reversible bottoms, print, and then a solid color on the other side. I am starting with the bottoms, the bottom backs, and as you can see here, I am doing only the backs first because I will waste less fabric by doing them next to each other. And then after, I'll go back and cut all the fronts. But as you can see, I'm cutting all the sizes of the backs first with 2 layers, scoring the center where my elastic is gonna go, and then putting them aside until I get to the front part. The fabric that I have chosen is a nylon spandex, around 80-20 composition, and I always look for this kind of composition for my swimsuits because I get the best stretch out of them. It's a 4-way stretch. Now I'm starting to cut the fronts. I use my rotary cutter. I love using this tool versus a scissor. I've never used scissors to cut my layers. With this rotary blade, this one is 45 millimeters, and you cut a bunch of swimsuits, and then when the blade goes dull, you just swap it out. I have links to those in my Amazon storefront if you're interested in buying one for yourself. The one I use is Olfa brand, and I've loved them ever since. So yeah, definitely a great way to cut your fabrics, whether you're cutting single layer or 2 layers like I am here. Also, you could see that I'm using a self-healing cutting mat over my non-healing cutting mat, which is my bigger one. This is also helpful for your rotary cutter life because it doesn't dull it as much as if I were to cut on the other mat, which recently I have not used at all because it gets damaged with every single cut and your fabric gets stuck to it. So I really enjoy using the self-healing mat over the bigger mat. So now that all the bottoms are cut front and back, I'm going to start with my triangle tops. And I am using the triangle top pattern that has the flat top. This is because I'm going to be adding straps with elastic, not the trim. So yeah, so I'm cutting 2 of each size. I am starting with extra small and I'm going to go all the way to extra large. I'm going to cut 2 per size because each triangle top has 1 on each side. So if I want to, I'm gonna have to make 2 cuts if I'm cutting in a double layer. So yeah, I'm here trying to use as much fabric as possible, putting my patterns really close to the other cut so that I can maximize the fabric and not have as much waste. Once I am done using up most of this fold, I'm gonna go ahead and open it up and cut single layers so that I make sure to maximize all the fabric. I am using a random weight for my patterns and my fabric so it doesn't move while I cut. You could use any kind of fabric weight that fits the size of your pattern. And here we go, we're opening up that fold and I'm gonna start cutting single layer until I use up all of the fabric if possible. So if I see that I get the better usage with an extra large top, I'll swap out the smaller top and use the extra large pattern so that I can use as much of that fabric as possible. I don't know if you saw that, but I was double checking to see the fabric grain to make sure I was still cutting on the same grain. I like to cut my swimsuits against the grain. I've always done so because it gives more resistance to your swimsuits and it stays on the body better, in my opinion. So here we are, we're almost done. I believe this is the last size. Cutting does take a lot of patience. It does take a lot of energy. So when I know that I'm gonna make a restock, I try to come to work a little bit earlier. So I have that energy early in the morning so I could think better and definitely have that mental space to do so because it is a lot of work, whether you're doing a small stock or a big stock. It's a lot of mental capacity that you have to have, as well as mental clarity to make sure you cut all the right items that you need. Now I'm cutting the strap trims and I have refolded my fabric to go with the grain. As I've said in the previous video, I prefer to fabric wrap my elastics with trim that is with the grain. This I've found out that it makes a nicer fabric wrap. It's smoother, it's more tight, but not too tight that it's hard to flip inside out once it's done. So I definitely recommend for you to try to fabric wrap your elastics with fabric that is with the grain. So, and let me know if that's worked for you, if you've tried any of the tips that I've shared in the past. I would love to hear from you. So here I'm cutting 3 things. I'm cutting the strap that's gonna go under your breast on the triangle top. These are all 2 inches. And then I'm also cutting the straps that are gonna be tied without elastic at the end of those straps. I am also cutting the neck straps without elastic, and also I'm cutting the piece that's gonna be fabric wrapped elastic that's gonna go at the top of our triangle top. So when I say you have to have mental clarity when you start cutting, this is what I mean, because you have to remember all the parts. You need to count out all the pieces that you have so that you don't have to come back and after you've sewn up all your pieces and you realize that you need one more trim, one more strap, because it's very draining. Let me know what your favorite part of sewing or your least favorite part of sewing are down in the comments below. So here I'm counting to see if I have enough of the shorter straps. And here I'm showing you guys all the cuts of the print. And boom, all of a sudden I have all the cuts with my lining and my white, which is my interior color. And we're gonna go ahead and start sewing. So I'm gonna show you how I do the bottom. I think I'm gonna show you how I do one of them, or maybe 2, because if I do all of them, this video would be much longer. So I was cutting my elastic that's gonna be my scrunch, and that one was 5 inches for my size small. I start off by placing the lining, then my fabric. I did my grip test to make sure that it's gripping onto my fabric correctly, and now I place the back fabric. And I sew till the middle, and then I sew a little bit of my elastic, flip it over. And since this one didn't have the center mark correctly marked, I went ahead and folded it in half and marked it with my scissor, and I sewed on the elastic to the center. Now I'm repeating the same process for the other small, because remember I'm doing 2 of each. And so it's lining, front, back, elastic, and then I flip it over and I sew on the elastic to the center of that top of that back. Just a little stitch to make sure it stays in place. And now I'm gonna grab my white, which is my interior color. I'm gonna grab the white face up, and then grab my front face down and sew them together, leaving a hole in the middle, which is about like 1 inch. And I'm repeating the same process for the second one. So the back is face up, the front is face down, so both right sides are sewn together. And now we're ready to sew the white to the print. And I start off by doing the white in the bottom and then my print with the lining on top. And I do this because there is more resistance or less stretch on the side that you put the lining on, and there's more stretch on the fabric without any lining. So for it to even out when you're sewing it together, it's better to put your lining side on top so that it ends up pulling about the same. So for a closed reversible cheeky, you want to start with the leg holes. I already did one side, now I'm doing the other. And then what you do is you just flip it inside out, and then you join them at the hip. So now that it's all sewn together in the leg holes, you'll see me just flip that inside out. And I'm gonna grab the hips, make sure they're the corresponding hips, and then we're gonna sew that together, making sure that the center seam is sewn and they match up. Now we're gonna grab the other hip and we're gonna close that up. So basically now we have the leg holes all sewn up in a seamless manner. And the next step would be to just wrap that up into the waistband, like in the scrunchie method, as you can see. And we're gonna slide the fabric out as we sew, trying not to pull on the lycra, because then you'll lose the shape of the actual garment. So you just want to pull it out so that you could continue to sew. Match the center of that elastic with the center of your front, or I'm sorry, of your back. And once that's done, you're going to flip it inside out through that hole that we left earlier on in the process. And here you have a perfectly seamless scrunched bottom. And now with the elastic or the back side on my left side, I'm going to start to tuck in those seams as best as possible, holding the elastic in the center while I secure it with a single needle so that it's securely in the center, because it can move around if you do not hold it. So that's one of the things I do. I like to hold it while I sew to make sure it stays in the middle. Now what we're going to do is the magical part, which when I post videos without explanation, people think I'm using like an elastic stitch. But no, we're just pinning down that elastic that we sewn inside of this bottom, and make sure it's going down the center. I like to use my index finger to secure it all the way down. And that is it. That is our scrunched bottom. It's reversible. And if you follow this process, you will have a beautiful scrunched bottom every single time. And now we're on to the straps. So you see all those straps to my left, I had to go ahead and sew them straight down without any, just like little tunnels. So these are gonna be the straps that go at the end of my elastics, and you'll see how in the next process. So I do those all first, and now I'm gonna fabric wrap my short elastics, which each one of these is 7 inches, and which then I cut after I flip inside out into 3 inches long. And these are the connecting elastic at the top of my triangle top, where you see the flat part of the pattern. So here they are, they're all flipped inside out. And just to save some time, I went ahead and I didn't record doing the same thing for the long strap that goes underneath the triangle top. And I'm just like flipping them inside out, and you could do this with any fabric. It has a really nice finish. And now I'm going to attach those tunnels to the elastic using my calipers here. I'm going to grab on to that elastics, move it all the way to the end, and secure it. The good thing about these calipers is that they have a lock, so they won't let go of that piece unless you open it or unlock it. So they're very, very helpful. And I also have them linked on my Amazon. So if you want to check them out, if you want to try them out, I really recommend them. And here I am doing the same thing, but with the longer elastic piece. Now we're ready to assemble our triangle top, our reversible triangle top. So don't mind me, I'm here cleaning up my workspace and sharpening my scissors. And now we're gonna assemble the top. So I'm grabbing 2 layers of lining, because these are double lined, getting my print face side up, then grabbing one of the pieces of the 3-inch elastics, placing it face down, then the white face down, and securing that top. And now we're going to sew the bottom part of the triangle top, making sure all the layers are properly sewn together. And when we sew the sides, we're going to leave about a 3/4 inch hole in the bottom, and that's for our tunnel when we flip it inside out on both ends. So that's where our sliding tunnel is going to be. So here I am doing the other side of that top, so you could see that again. Making sure the top and all the layers are properly secured, because remember there is 4 layers here, 2 lining and 2 fabric. So you want to take your time with that. When I grab my pieces, my pairs for the elastic, I make sure that they're both the same size, and if they're not, I just trim them real quick. I think you saw me do that earlier. And here I am securing the bottom and doing the same thing while leaving a hole in the bottom. And this is my last one, because remember I'm doing 2 of each size. If you have any questions, do ask in the comments below. I do review them weekly, and I try to answer as many comments as I can on my videos. So let me know if you have any questions. Now it's time to add our elastic, and my machine has a metering device which feeds the elastic to the presser foot, and I don't know how I got this angle. I know it's a great angle, but it was really hard for me to sew. So I'm like peeking through under my camera to make sure I'm actually sewing. But it's a great angle for you guys to get a look at how I sew these, the elastic on these triangle tops. And as you can see, I'm leaving that hole in the bottom. I don't start all the way to the top of my triangle top because I like leaving a little piece without elastic, because when you flip it inside out, it gives you a flatter top. So I found that to be better. Once I have them all with elastic, and I flipped all my tops inside out, now we're gonna do our sliding tunnel. And I tuck in the edges on the beginning and the end of all my tops very securely. And I make sure to secure them front at the beginning and at the end. And that way they won't sneak out once you put in your elastic through those tunnels. But yeah, let me show you another one. I'm gonna tuck that in, make sure it's flat, and secure it with a stitch. Now I'm doing my tunnels 3/4 inch, and I'm guiding myself with the plate. Or you could guide yourself with a plate, or if you're kind of used to it, you just use telemetry. And then we have 2 tops, and I'm gonna put my elastic through. And this part is kind of tricky because, you know, you did tuck in those seams. So you have to make sure with your loop turner you avoid or kind of like slip through that. But once you do, it's a piece of cake. And now we're going to slide our elastic through, and you have this nice, beautiful top. And that tunnel is nice and snug. And it's gonna give great lift, great hold. It's one of the best triangle tops I have ever made, and I came up with this design on my own and the technique to make this design on my own too. And that's the fun part about designing. You get to do whatever you want, and you get to try out different techniques that work for you. And yeah, definitely customers love these 2 styles, the reversible cheeky bottoms without elastic, and then the top with the thicker elastic on the underside and at the top gives great hold. And now these are ready to be sold in my store. As you can see here, they're tagged and ready to be enjoyed. Thank you guys for watching. See you guys next time.